Okay. Ah!
Sheesh.
Woo!
Hey,
Wow, we're here. I'm excited.
hey.
Yay. Can you hear me?
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you.
Edwin D and Inspiring Decisions. Yay. You're like, testing, testing.
Hey, can you
Nope.
hear me?
I can hear you, but it's not moving. It's like frozen. Hold on. Come back. Oh, Wendy. Yes, thank you.
Okay, what about now?
Okay, yes.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
Woo.
honestly, I do not know what was going on. My IG would not, like, it just kept declining. I kept trying to send a request and it kept saying request decline. I was like,
Yeah.
what is going on? Like, oh my God. It's so frustrating. Whew, let
But
me,
whew, but we're here. It's over now. It's over. The problem was there. It is resolved. So now we can move forward.
oh, I know, I know. Whew. So again, I apologize to all the listeners and the followers. Geez, honestly, I do not know, like, because I'm always on Instagram and literally I kept clicking and clicking and it kept saying the request was denied. So again, I apologize to everybody. That
Oh,
is
that
not
you don't have to
like,
do that. That's okay. You don't have to do that because I just continue on with the conversation. I brought on my sponsor and we were talking, and it's fine,
okay,
truly, because with technology in the digital world, you expect that sometimes those things can happen anyway. So it's
right.
okay. So we're here. Choose your path. Oh my goodness, I started these conversations. I believe it was the end of July. I started
Hmm.
these conversations just to get on and talk to my friends and some business associates and just have conversations. And yeah, I thought this was only going to be 2 weeks, and it
Right.
ended up being like a month. And then a few months went by, and I said, "Oh no, let me check in and see how everybody is doing." And through the conversations, hopefully inspire somebody. And then it turned into a thing.
Right.
And here we are, having a conversation. I wanted to pin this comment here.
Okay.
Having a conversation, choose your path, because I really believe that no matter what is going on in the external world, that we have the ability to do what we want to do and to choose our path. We get a
Right.
choice, right? So
Hmm.
how have you been doing during this pandemic,
I've actually been
Derek
doing
Carter?
doing pretty well. Of course, there's moments and times when it's a little frustrating, because you want to get out and do things. Especially myself, I love going to the basketball games, the college games, football games,
Mm-hmm.
NBA games. Definitely, I'm always down in Orlando or up in the Atlanta area attending the games, and
Mm-hmm.
so not being able to do that has really been, a little frustrating. But considering the circumstances, it's kind of like, hey, it's definitely understandable.
Oh, yeah, it definitely is. Oh my goodness. Have there been any lessons that you've learned? Like for me, one of my biggest lessons that I learned is that I'm not in control.
Right, right, right. By far, by far, I think that is probably the biggest lesson that everyone can take from it is because we're so used to controlling where we go, what we do, who we're spending time with, or we go out every Friday or Saturday at a certain time. That's what we're accustomed to doing. But now having the this time now to say, oh man, by now I normally am doing this, or this time of year I'm in Barbados somewhere. You're not able to do that. So it really just kind of goes back to your faith, and you have to dig deep and just, really, trust the man upstairs and say, hey, now I actually get it that there's a higher power that's in control. Even to those that don't believe, I think it is kind of like, okay, there's something else in the works here in the atmosphere. And so for me, it's just depending on that faith to push you through. Because without it,
Oh
you
yeah.
will literally lose your mind.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Whew, Yeah, because that's why I had to definitely make sure too that I think it's important to surround yourself with positive and good energy as well. You know, because it was so easy. If I didn't have like these amazing people that I have around me, it's very easy
Hmm.
to lose your mind.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's very easy to lose your mind. Tell me where you're originally from. I'm
Well,
from
I'm
Cleveland,
originally from
Ohio.
I'm originally from Valdosta, Georgia. I'm born and raised South Georgia. Been here all my life. Some friends, they're always like, "Bro, you gotta get out of Valdosta," just because of my mindset and the different things that I kind of have my hands in different areas. So most are saying, "Hey, you got to come up to Atlanta." My cousin Casey that lives in Atlanta, he's like, "Bro, it's time. Like it's past time."
Yeah.
So like I said, just born and raised from here, just kind of settled in really early, out of college and just kind of stayed. But to be honest, I do have that itch to expand, now, and maybe to the Atlanta area. So if Casey, if you're watching, then it's a maybe. But I kind of like the Orlando area better than
Oh,
the Atlanta area right now. But Atlanta's really growing on me because I'm always up there with my son playing baseball. So
yes, and that was so cool. You put it on the ad, on the
yeah, I
video
saw
ad.
that. Thank
That
you
was so
all
cool. I
for that
was like,
shout
that's
out.
when I seen it, I said, oh, that's his son. Oh my God, that
Oh
was
yeah.
that's exactly how I did. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
God, that's his son. That is so cool.
Thank you all for that. I appreciate that.
Tell me how did you mm, I heard something. Let me go back a little bit. I was just talking to my sponsor, 10K Cards, right? And he was
Hmm.
saying how, the system of like education, the schools, pretty much failed us. And although I mean, I guess I could agree with that, but I also can be, I guess, a devil's advocate and say that
Right.
if they give me everything, right,
Mm.
then won't
I
actually
can.
value how amazing it is to be educated. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like for
Right.
me, education was very important because my grandmother couldn't read. She was raising me, and I said I wanted to read for the both of us. So I didn't just do the education at the school. I
Hmm.
also, she would bring me books home from
Yes.
the white people's homes that she was working for back in that time. And she would bring me these amazing books, and I would just read, 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 read.
Hmm.
So I just think like if they gave me the financial literacy, they gave me this, they gave me that, da, 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 then what is there to strive for? What is there to go to college for and learn how to speak all of these? What's the
Right.
important? Where did you find that?
Right.
Education was so important because you have all of these letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G
No,
behind your name.
no, no, no. Honestly, I mean, to be perfectly honest, it actually started at an early age, and something that you said was really, really key. Um, Growing up, my grandmother actually, because she couldn't read, so she would get the newspapers and pretty much give them to me and say, "Tell me what happened today." And I had to be honestly maybe two, and would just try to figure the words out until I became better at it. And so after
Wow.
a while, she would just, be like, "Oh, okay, you're good at that." Then, of course, her favorite thing was getting the obituary section and saying, "Hey, who died today?" And I'm like, "Huh?" I'm like 4 or 5, like I don't understand it, but I'm reading the newspaper for her, telling her what's going on with the current events in the world and things like that. So as time went on, it's kind of like, oh, it became the norm. But for me, being I'm really a first generation college student is what most people don't know about me. Is that both of my parents are pastors. Shout out to my mother and my father,
Oh,
Apostle
that's
Frank Carter,
beautiful.
and Pastor Shirley Carter. But taking what they couldn't do and strive for perfection to get better. I have this thing that I always like to say is that, in this life, nobody has to give you anything. Nobody owes you anything. I'm huge on affirmations and making it happen. Put your faith in God, but you gotta put in the work, like
You do.
regardless. Like
You do.
you have to grind it out. I mean, whether it's someone who feels like, okay, they're trying to make it to a celebrity status, or even the celebrities, in order to stay at that level, they have to grind, and it's
Uh-huh.
not easy. You know, nobody's just gonna dump $2 million into your lap and say, "Hey, go do what you want to do with it." You know, you got to have a plan. And
Yeah.
so, like I said, I use education, as most would say, as my way out, in a sense, as my way to further myself and put my family in a better, situation.
Mm. Wow. Tell me the degrees.
Well, I have associate's degree in computer information system, and I have a bachelor's in business administration, and I have a master's in leader development, and I'm actually currently in for my doctoral degree at Baylor University in higher education and leadership and management.
That is absolutely amazing. I congratulate you, by the
Thank
way.
you.
Yeah, I started I was reading the newspaper with my grandmother as well, but I think I read the obituary so much that I literally became that thing. I mean,
Yes.
like I really became that thing, and I'll tell you how far I went with it. I wrote a letter to the coroner's office and I wanted to see an autopsy. Like I really wanted to see what that looked like. I wanted to be a coroner because I
Oh,
read it so
wow.
much. I say that to say that sometimes, I come from a poverty stricken,
Oh, yeah. I
background, right?
completely understand. Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how, like, no matter what, even if you're doing your homework and you're putting yourself through school, you
Mm-hmm.
can sometimes still become that thing without even like necessarily making the decision that this is what I want to be. You understand what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? That's why
Right.
eventually you have to make the move.
Right.
It's not about like, oh, forget where you come from and oh, da 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 da. No, at some point you have to make a move. A move has to be made, right?
Right.
And so I got to see two autopsies.
Wow.
I started going to school and studying and doing all of these great things,
Uh-huh.
studying biology with a minor in chemistry. I was going to be a doctor. I was on my way because I read that obituary.
Wow. Look
And
at
it
you.
means that, yeah, exactly, right? So then my last year, my daughter's father at the age of 24 was murdered. And it took my
Um,
whole breath away. And so I say all that to say, I'm just sharing my story, but I
yeah.
say all that to say that that does not mean that in your life you didn't have things that come up. How did
Right.
you continue to push through those things? Because it can be very difficult when you're in school because life is still happening.
Hmm. Oh, well, definitely. Faith is always that foundation that dig deep and just get you through. And then with me going back to school, of course, by then, I'm married, several years, and then started to have a family. So, playing the role of father, husband,
Mm.
slash mentor. Then I'm a student at the same time. It takes a lot of balance. Honestly, a lot of balance, a lot of faith, a lot of sleepless nights. I will say that. I know a lot of guys that I actually mentor. A lot of my mentees are just like, "Oh, I want to be like you, Mr. Carter," and this and this. And sometimes I look at them and say, "You really don't understand what you're saying," um,
Right.
because it takes a lot of balance. Because doing one thing more than the other, a lot of times, I mean, it can shake your household. It really can. So. And especially now with my son playing travel baseball and on the weekends, we're in Atlanta, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee.
Mm.
So it's that, hey, whenever we are at the hotel and whenever we get, situated or in between games, I just gotta get on, log on, and just grind it out. Because I think
Mm.
I'm one that I just refuse to allow myself any excuses not to push forward. Like I said, I grew up. We didn't have a lot of money. I mean, we struggled. And my parents, they definitely can attest to it. Being pastors, everybody think you're rich for some reason.
Yeah, no, that's
I
true.
can never understand that. Even today, they're like, "Oh, I bet y'all had a lot of money." I'm like, "How?" When we were the last one to leave the church with the broken down car and
That's
everything.
true.
And so, I think my mind continues to reflect back on that. Honestly, in the times that I really want to quit. And there's been numerous of times where, like, I'm up to 5 o'clock in the morning and literally tears are running down my face because I'm just like, I can't do this. It's too much. I'm overwhelmed. And literally just a thought of how I grew up and how, my mother and my father raised, myself and my two older brothers, it just, literally it's like that second wind kicks in and says, look where you came from. Like, you have no choice. You got to push forward. Look at your son.
You
Look at your
have
daughter.
to.
Like, you just got to push. You don't have no choice. And literally, I have to tell myself, look myself in the mirror and say, quit making excuses and just get it done. And literally, and that's what I do. And I have those around me, like you said, some of my partners from here, Mario Lampkin, who keeps me accountable. We're always talking back and forth about
Need
our kids,
those.
playing baseball, but like he's always like, "Hey, bro, hey man, you got it, you got it." Like, just being positive. Of course, my cousin Casey. Man, there's numerous others that I can name. And my Fab Five crew, they know who they are from here without giving individual names. But Fab Five, y'all watching, y'all already know. But
Aw.
just kind of like that self check. And I definitely got to mention my partner Steve, my frat brother, Cap Alpha Psi, um, definitely, keeping each other accountable. Just saying, hey, bro, like, you kind of slacking. Like, and I'm like, what you mean, man? By now you supposed to. I'm like, all right, all right, all right. So it's just having that drive and pushing through, because it can be tough. Like you said, it's just sometimes you're just like, man. And then with COVID happening, it's just like, oh my Lord, and you're just ready for everything just to kind of be done.
Just, yeah. And that's exactly, I think that's exactly why I do these conversations too, because I've been there. I've made my mistakes. I don't know, and I think it was mainly my mindset then. You know what I mean? Because I think that even though I had lost someone very dear to my heart, that should have been enough for me to keep moving as long as I had breath. But I just didn't have it then. I wasn't looking at it that way.
Yeah, sometimes it will. And honestly, and this is another thing, and it's funny that you said that about 2 years ago, I lost my best friend, actually, John Isom.
My condolences.
He had a heart attack. And beforehand, it was like we always talked about, hey, you know what? We're going to put our families on. We're going to, put them in position to be better. And, I'll never forget it. Literally, like, so 2 years ago, it was close to his birthday. It was in March. And getting a text while I was sitting in church and from one of my former students saying, hey, you might need to get to the hospital, and he go by the nickname of You Can Man. That's what everybody knows him. John, the You Can Man, because he's always saying, you can. And so
Oh, that's
he
beautiful.
was a motivational speaker. I mean, energetic. I mean, energy for days. So when that happened, it shook me. I mean, honestly. And I would say, like, I'm just now starting to kind of get some sense of normalcy from dealing with it. But honestly, it was just like I'm still coming to grips, with like,
Yeah,
man,
it's a
like, he's really not
difficult
here.
thing. That's a
It really
difficult
is.
thing.
So just trying to, like you said, dig deep and just thinking in my head, like he would be one that I talk to at least 5 to 6 times a day. It'll be 2 o'clock in the morning and he'll send me a text and say, hey, I got an idea about this speaking engagement, blah, 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 blah. And so going from that of 10 years of literally 4 to 5 times a day, talking about ideas and trying to push each other to not having that was, I mean, honestly, it was life changing. And every now and then, even when sometimes I'm traveling on the road to Atlanta, like this past weekend, I drove to Atlanta, had to take my son to a workout, then I came back, and then I did a turnaround and went back to Atlanta, literally all in the same day. And I think at first I was good, but like as soon as I got on 75 to head back up, it just kind of hit me like, man, if he was here, he would ride with me to go. So I kind of got a little like, and then I had to kind of shake myself and say, okay, well, he would want you to keep pushing, to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because we're still here. I remember asking my grandmother that question because all her friends were gone, but she was still smiling. And I
Right,
was like, how do you do that? Like,
right,
how do
right,
you get to this point in your life and keep moving forward and still, she was like, you just keep on living. So that's
right.
what
That's
I
it.
always have to remember. And I have to pull that out of my bag and say, I got to keep on living because I'm
Right,
still here. Because if not, all of those emotions that we
Ooh,
feel, you know what I mean? That eventually you see the high blood pressure, the diabetes, the heart attacks, and all of those
hmm,
things, because they have to go somewhere. They,
right.
you know, they're roaming freely, and they have to have a place to go. And if you're not releasing them, you're not dealing with them, you're not letting them go,
Hmm.
then yeah, you can definitely find yourself like on a train getting
Oh
ready to
yeah,
derail,
real
right?
easy. Like you really can. Like like I said, before you know it, you're sitting there. It's almost like when you're driving somewhere and something is on your mind, and you look up, you're like, man, I done missed my turn because you're just like out of it. Like, wait a minute, man, I done passed my thing like 3 or 4 streets ago because you're just so zoned in, and so that depression, things like that, it'll have you, like you said, on the train way out in California somewhere, and by the time you come to yourself, you're like, oh my God, like I was really depressed.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the donation. Hello, Darren. Hello, Grafted underscore to give. Yeah, that's very true. I was thinking, I do this radio show on Sundays. We're off for the holiday season, but it's
Hmm.
titled Lifestyles of Successful Thinkers, and I do it with Dr. Adrian Daisley. And
Hmm.
we were talking, I talk about all the time, and I always ask him because he's a business leadership coach, and I always ask him, how does he separate his emotions,
Ooh.
when you're mentoring someone? So I'm going to ask you that same question since you're an educator and mentor. How do you separate the emotions from what's in front of us and what we're trying to do with the mentee or show them, so to speak?
Well, for me, honestly, it can be challenging, make sure that you separate, that emotion from it. Me, what I like to do initially is just always start out, okay, with the issue. What is the issue? Be 100% transparent. I'm huge on transparency. So I'm like, hey, just be transparent, tell me about the issue, what's going on. And then I guess seeing through it at the same time, having that compassion of, trying to cultivate, what it is that they're really trying to say, because sometimes they're not just going to tell you right up front, what they are dealing with, but just having the ability just to, I think, really listen and just kind of
Mm,
really put yourself in a
that's a big thing.
situation emotionally, but at the same time, not so far where it causes you to pretty much create a crutch for them and handicap them at the same time. Um, because I've mentored, oof, Lord, hundreds. I think when I worked at Valdosta State over 10 years, it had to be well over close to 1,200 students. And you have some come in, some just come in because they just, oh, you're a great guy to talk to, so they told me to come talk to you. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then once you talk to others, we're dealing with some real serious issues, then, you really have to, it's like affirmations, positive affirmations. And I think for me, that's kind of how I wound up separating the emotional part from it because of speaking positive things, because there's so much negativity surrounded around their issues and things that they're going through. And if you're not careful, you'll say, oh man, all you need is $500 to, finish school, because your grandmother and your mom and your dad and nobody's here for support. So of course, my mind is like, hold on. I'm texting my wife, hey, I know we got some extra, blah, 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 blah.
Uh,
All they need is $500, da, 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 or all they need is $100. And I've done that before. Like I really have. And didn't, let anybody know. But it came to a point of like, okay, versus just doing that to create a crutch for them, it was more like, okay, let me teach them, the value of things and pushing through, and just really, like I said, just seeing it through all the way to the end. In my fraternity, we always had this thing, no excuses. Everybody know what excuses are, and I say, to me, you know, it's an excuse. I said, to you, it's a reason. And that's what I tell them typically halfway through. I say, okay, I know what you're saying. To you, it sounds like the best reason and the best, story that you can come up to. I said, but for
mhm.
me, it's an excuse. I said, so you got to find that drive, like I said, whether it's thinking about family members or a best friend. But even if there's nobody there around, you have to dig deep within yourself. And that's something that 2020 has really, really taught me, if nothing else, is, live life, with expectation, but, don't expect those around you to really, push you to that
Oh
next
no.
level,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
and
up to
I
you.
think that's been the main lesson I've learned throughout 2020. And it's crazy because just Saturday night, Sunday, when I was up in Atlanta, I actually had two people tell me that. They were just like, okay, why are you making excuses for this? And I'm like, nah, man. I'm like, nah, sis, da da da. And they were like calling me out on it. And I was just like, you know what? And they were just like, wait, pause, just accept it. And I was like, no, 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 no. It was like,
You're like,
no,
no.
no. They was like, no, just accept it. And it's crazy because the moment that I said, okay, I accept it and I meant it, it's almost like I was just like, and
How
so,
how do you encourage, when I talk to the little people, going to the little people, before the COVID, go and speak to the little people, how do you encourage, like, I know that you do the positive affirmations, but how do you really encourage the innovative ideas? When you think about people not living out their purpose or finding it or taking the time to go out and look for it, you really robbing the people of something absolutely amazing, right? Because what if God gave you an idea, or God gave me an idea that
mhm.
can change this whole universe and how people look at it, and I did nothing about it?
I did nothing about it. You're right. Mm. Ooh, yeah. For me, it's really just finding that passion. Just say, okay, I know you like to do this,
Uh-huh.
but what do you really want to do? Not what your mom or your dad or grandma said you should do, because we all have had that, okay, hey, you should be, this, or you should be a pastor, or you should be a counselor because you're just great with people. But at the end of the day, it's about, okay, what do you really want to do? And just really trying to push them to that next level. Really just making them believe in themselves. For an example, because I currently teach GED classes now, and honestly, I would say I probably would spend about 80% of the time motivating and 20% of the time teaching, especially during this COVID, situation where everybody has to go online, and that's tough because of their situations and their barriers. A lot of them don't have the internet or they don't have a laptop. So I'm having to
Mm.
upload, classwork, and they're having to do it on their phones. So dealing with someone who's 18, who has 4 kids, and, they're looking for a job, better job, no internet, no lights and things, just really just trying to find that little bit of faith that's in there somewhere, just trying to pull it out of them, because even when they don't even believe in themselves, and like I said, just trying to push them to that next level, and it can be tough.
Yeah, because it has to be, whatever it is that you're going after, it has to be bigger than you. And a lot of times what happens with people is that they tend to start looking at reality and what's
Oh,
going on instead of
yeah,
activating the faith. Because the thing about faith is that you're seeing something that's not even really there, but you believe that it can actually become.
right.
So
Yeah,
I think that is just absolutely, it takes a really special person no matter what their situation is. So if they got to
mhm,
do their homework on their phone, then that's what the situation calls for, because God
right,
wants to know, how bad do you want this at that
right,
period, at this period of time? Because computers were expensive when I was growing up. Like,
right,
everybody didn't have one. You
right.
know
You're
what I
right.
mean?
Yeah,
But that didn't stop me from doing, making straight A's in school, or
you're
graduating or
right.
anything like that. It didn't stop it. I think that we had to just start to be grateful and live in, like, grace and thankfulness, to say,
Be great.
hey, you know what? I'm still able to do whatever. If you got to send me the notes on here and I got to do it on my phone,
Right,
I'm grateful for the moment, just to be
right,
in the experience of, one day I'm going to get my GED. And
right.
one day I'm going to do XYZ because
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this for the moment.
Right, right. I like what you said. Like you said, it's just you start focusing on everything around you in the current situations, and instead of saying, you know what, let me just get it done. As a matter of fact, there was one young lady who actually was walking to school. I promise you, it had to be. I know for a fact it's like a 15-minute drive across town. So walking is every bit of an hour and a half. And did not make an excuse. I'm talking about every day would walk and be there on time at that. So, my classes are normally from 1 to 4. So you talking about every bit of, leaving at 11, just to make sure, they're there and stay the
They
whole
got an
time.
amazing future, though.
Right. Didn't make any excuses. If they was running late, they'll come in and say, hey, can I talk to you, Mr. Carter? Come on. Hey, I'm sorry I'm late, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay, but everybody else who, they just drive up there or they're like round the corner, it's all these excuses. And I sit there and look at her like, wow. Like, and so I think when I start to want to make excuses for myself, like, oh man, I got to do this when I get off. I literally have to stop and say, okay, you can go get in your truck and drive across town.
You can.
This individual has to walk. So like I said,
you have a choice.
Right. Reality sets in like, okay, why are you complaining? And I think dealing with them, it actually has allowed me to actually become a better father because seeing their situations and their circumstances, it teaches me that, hey, a lot of times if I'm not there for my kids and if I'm not being an active father versus just a regular father, but active and involved and not even just sports, but just
instead
coming
of
home.
just showing up.
Right. Instead of just showing up, but active, asking them, hey, what did you do today? What did the teacher talk about today? Things like that. Then I'm like, man, I could be setting them up for, failure. I could be creating stumbling blocks for my own kids by not being active. So I think, being there and working at the college and doing a lot of mentoring, it really has helped me to become a better father because there's no handbook, on, hey, this is what you have to do and you'll be the father of the year.
None at all.
It's that whole trial and error, just learning and listening. And I think that's another thing that, listening to my son, he's 12. And so he's like, well, Dad, no, I don't want to go, or I don't feel like playing, today or whatever. Then just, listening and saying, okay, so yeah, it's interesting.
I just put this picture up. Who's that guy? That is Mr. Carter right there. Wow. Shout out to 10K Cards. I am so excited to give you this. Oh my goodness, this is crazy.
Oh man, I appreciate that.
Yeah, this is so crazy. Like when I say, I know you'll probably be laughing, but I'm like, to have a sponsor during this time, during a pandemic for an Instagram live series that I started during this, I'm grateful. I am so grateful to give you this card. So what happens is now you have your own QR code here, right?
Hey, check that.
So I can take their phone. All you have to do is just pick up your device and they can just take the phone.
Oh man, I feel official.
Oh no, you're definitely official. We have definitely gone all the way digital with this.
Appreciate that.
Take that and they scan it and then they can find you. If you have a website, if you have whatever it is that's under the umbrella of Derek L. Carter Sr.
Well, thank you.
Right here.
10K Carter, appreciate that, man. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Wow. I feel official now. I'm on
Isn't
your
that
show.
amazing?
And then got a digital card. Oh man, hey, wow.
Wow, yeah, there's your LinkedIn, your Twitter. They can really connect with you, and anything else that needs to be added or whatever, you can just let me know and we'll just do it right away. Right, 10K Cards?
Oh man.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, hey, I'm definitely honored. Like I said, hey, just to be on the show and then have that, man.
That's you.
Wow.
I like mine. Like you can add it on your phone as a bookmark. And it looks like you have literally your own app.
Uh-oh.
Yep. That's exactly what it looks like. I know. That's so cool, right? So
wow.
Scan the card. There goes the picture there. Oh my goodness. They must have looked that up because I didn't have that picture.
I haven't seen that picture in a while. Well, appreciate that. Hey, appreciate that shout out. Oh man.
Yep, point the camera and scan the code. And also, if anyone wants to go and find you, they can check the link in my bio. There's a Meet the Guest, and they can click on there and they can find you. Yep, your own personal app, literally.
Oh man, hey, I definitely feel official now. I appreciate it. I'm honored. Like I'm really honored. Appreciate it.
Our time is coming to an end. Can you believe that?
Oh man, I know it went by. Again, I apologize. I don't know what was going on. I
Oh,
mean,
no worries.
I was in here just like, oh my God, you know, as my friend, the devil must be busy. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, devil got
No.
on my phone. I mean,
Nope.
literally.
I'm like you. As you figure it out, I just keep on talking until you come on. It's never, and it's okay, because we are living in crazy times,
Yeah,
and I live in the moment. So I'm just grateful for the moment, and
I
when that
like that.
moment comes, I'm open and ready for it, and I don't too much worry about and talk about what didn't work once the problem is solved. What we're talking about,
I
let's
like
move
that.
forward,
I
right?
like. Oh yeah,
So
see, I like
it's
that. Thank
okay.
you. I like that.
Yeah. You're welcome. So now we're at the end. I always ask the question. I had so many other questions to ask you. So maybe next year when I start the podcast, you have to come back.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I was thinking at the end of every show, I always ask, either one word or a sentence, something that you can give us to inspire and motivate us as we continue to move forward.
I would have to say something that has stuck with me since I became a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, which I literally embody. And, you know, our motto, which is achievement in every field of human endeavor. And so to me, that is, you know, no matter what you do, no matter what you put your hands on, you know, anything you're thinking about, anything that you just say, okay, I want to do it, like, you know, achieve it. Like you have to have that mindset that, hey, I'm going to achieve this. And so most of the time I think about anything I want to just try. I'm like, okay, achievement in every field of human endeavor. I mean, anything that the human mind can thinks about, like, just go after it. You
Do
know,
it.
don't make excuses. Just go after it. And another thing I say, striving for perfection. Although I know I cannot be perfect, but I will never use that to make an excuse to not try.
Nice. You guys heard it. Derek Carter, thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's donations and the time. Thank you, 10K Cards, for this amazing digital business card. If anyone wants one, definitely check the link in the bio. Thank you so much. Love, light, and energy to you and your family
Thank
as we
you.
continue to move forward, right? And do amazing things. Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Appreciate it.